Welcome back to Dinner Television. Well, a lot of things have happened here in Fort McMurray since the wildfire to help people rebuild their lives. And of course, the regional municipality of Wood Buffalo playing a huge part in all of that. Well, Ted Henley spoke with the mayor, Melissa Blake, about some of those successes and of course some of the challenges.
Melissa Blake, the mayor of the regional municipality of Wood Buffalo, joins us now. Fort McMurray is the largest city within Wood Buffalo. Mayor Blake has been serving her people as mayor since 2004. Mayor Blake, logistically speaking, it's been 1 year now since the wildfire. How tough has it been for you and your council here to help people work through certain things?
I think the biggest barrier for me is overcoming the sense of discord that I have. I kept my home, I kept my family, I kept my life largely as it was, and yet I'm working with people who have gone through the ringer. There's no question about that. And for me, the biggest barrier is not actually having their solution. A lot of it is involving the insurance policies that they have, ensuring that we've got the right land policies in place so that people who have to build differently can. And so the barriers are more psychological barriers than actual real ones. We can tear down the real ones, but the rest of it is really hard to overcome.
From a healing perspective, how are people in your community doing? How are you doing?
I think generally community is doing incredibly well. All things considered, it was a traumatic event that we've been through. The mental health supports that we've established in the community have been taken advantage of. We've saw, I think last year, about 25,000 outreaches. And as we approach significant things like this May 3rd date when we all took that leave, we're encouraging people to, again, keep mental health in check and make sure that they've got what they need to get through not just this day, but any of the other things that will trigger memories for them that may not be comfortable. You just don't see it happening generally on the streets or anything like that. It's a very personal experience for people.
A lot has happened over the last 12 months to your community, Mayor Blake. What have you learned about your people? What have you learned about this community?
I think it was something I always knew, but it certainly got amplified because of the response to the wildfire. We've long been a community that is made up of people from around the globe, different thoughts, views, and points on everything, and yet we are united in the significance of this community and what it means to be a member of that. And when we saw the evacuation occurring, I will tell you, I'm still blown away by the orderly fashion that happened in, as opposed to a chaotic, panic-induced state. The people here are just, they're incredibly resilient, and seeing them coming through this difficulty and really rising up to the challenge and surviving and thriving is what we were before, but we're even more so in focus now.
And one final question, Mayor Blake. What do you want to see continue to happen as you and your community continue to move forward from this?
I think, Ted, it's certainly going to have to be about, again, giving people what they need to be whole, to be healthy, to be home. And so it's not an overnight recovery, not by any stretch of the imagination, but we will see so much more construction this year, which means so many more people will have that option to be back where they belong.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Mayor Blake. I know you're very busy along with your council. A lot still left to happen here in Fort McMurray. Thank you very much for your time.
All right, and now we go back to Fort McMurray where Courtney Theriault is live. And of course, that rebuilding definitely underway, especially from what we saw in the last hour of all of the houses, Courtney, that are being there. I mean, you've been there several times in the last couple of months. You're getting a sense that that rebuilding is actually very much happening and people just wanting to move forward at this point.
We're definitely getting that sense as we step into the communities of Waterways, of Abasand, and up in Beacon Hill. These were the communities that we remember seeing the charred out husks, basements, basically communities torn asunder by the massive hunger of that unprecedented wildfire. But if you go up to those communities right now, what you see is something different. And to the untrained eye, to someone who might not have known what transpired here back on May 3rd, 2016, it might look just like a normal new community development. And that's an inspiring thing to see. And our Premier, Rachel Notley, had a chance to take in some of those sites today. She's in town to address to acknowledge this anniversary and saying today that what we're seeing here shows the world what a selfless and caring community Fort McMurray is, and says that everywhere she goes on the international stage, what happened here in Fort McMurray and the resiliency of its individuals who call it home, well, that keeps coming up.
Your province is very, very proud of you. And people from the U.S. to China to Japan are inspired by you and inspired by the bravery, the strength, and the resilience that this community did show and continues to show. And I just must reassert and state just one more time, we said we would be with you on the journey. We know the journey is not over. We are still with you.
Now, as we all know, Highway 63 was the only route out of Fort McMurray during the 2016 wildfire evacuation. And when asked about calls for another access route out of the community, well, the Premier today said the Transportation Ministry is working with the municipality on possible options. And to that extent, the Alberta government has already dedicated $5 million towards a feasibility study, with the municipality putting down $5 million itself. All right, as we mentioned, there are no shortage of thank yous coming out of Fort McMurray. Everyone seems to have a story about someone who stepped up and went above and beyond the call of duty back on May 3rd to ensure that everyone got out safely. And right now, we're going to share some more of those amazing stories with you.
I'd really like to start my thank yous to Food Banks Alberta. Without them, you know, we really wouldn't have been able to manage or provide the services the way we did. Second, I'd like to thank the Red Cross, because they did provide the funding required for us to be a reentry support service for the whole summer in providing those 7,800 hampers to over 11,000 people. You know, they really stepped up and came forward for our community. And then to the donors and the people of Canada and really the world, because we did receive donations from across the world. We just really want to thank you for prioritizing a community that is often beaten up on a little bit and seeing us as human beings who are just in a time of need and taking the time to take care of us.